there, Q2N.
Yeah, it's a Zoom, so
nice.
Which is a well-known brand, and it's a camera that is made for like music groups, where you can get like a wide angle, but you can get the camera up close because the mic is really what's people are interested in.
Cool.
You know, so it's going.
Okay.
So Jeffrey and
Brian.
Ryan.
Yeah, with an R.
Ryan.
Yep.
I'm Jeff. So
cool.
Are you in there? Is it a wide
I think
angle?
so. I think so. If I go like this, I think. So my question is 2 parts. We're all going to die someday. What do you think happens next, if anything? And whatever you believe or doubt about it, how did you get there? You know, like so I'll ask more questions as far as like that's what I'm really interested in, is finding out people's experiences.
Okay.
Know?
So I guess first part of your question, what do you think happens when we die? I mean, I suppose I would follow that up with a question, what is the experience when one is born? It's a bit mystifying, right? I don't know that any of us remember our experience, even though that's probably, for most of us, closer to our lived experience than death, right?
We
haven't died yet. We should know something about what it's like to be born.
Yeah.
We don't quite remember it. I think death is a mystery for all of us. I think a lot of people who have passed on aren't necessarily sending back, you know, in-depth reviews of what it's like. So it's anybody's guess. Yeah. My guess is that it's a transformative, wondrous experience that probably really can't be put into words.
Okay.
And I'll leave it at that.
Sounds like you believe then that there is a part of us that is separate from our body.
Yeah.
I don't know if you'd go so far as to call it a soul or a spirit, or you know, put a label on it, but
I think we merge back into that from which we came. A consciousness, wherever that is, it could be everything and all things. Yeah, you know,
that leaves a lot. Yeah, because like I guess people that believe in reincarnation believe, you know, kind of the same thing, but.
Similar,
are you talking about like? Would you say that you think you'll have any consciousness? Will you be you, kind of thing?
No, I think that we're sort of like our personalities here and our lives here are pretty limited by nature. You know, I think that the thing that we move into is quite expansive and universal by nature, and so I think that what we've seen is our personality. Sort of melts away, and we probably are thankful for it.
Okay.
Yeah. I agree in the sense that I think this idea of being able to still have a sense of self is a very egotistical human way of thinking. And the truth is, there is no Jeff, there is no Jeffrey, there is no Ryan. And that's what that's my truth, is that individuality is an illusion. And it's something that our ego has created. But the fact is, we are all from the same source, and I believe that we'll all go back to where we came from.
I think ultimately we're all one here. I mean, our experiences, our skin color, you know, socioeconomic upbringing, background, all that stuff, like, kind of puts us in these pockets of like, oh, we're separate, we're different, we're not like the other. We're individuals. We're not like the other, and I think melting that away is what death does.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, I would even go as far as to say is what we're talking about is God. It's not consciousness. It's not our lives. It is the ever-present, omnipresent center of all things that has no circumference. It is right here what we're talking about, right? It is the energy that is in the conversation, is this elusive thing that we've all come from. Does that make sense? What I'm trying to describe is this, I won't even say an entity, but it is this force, or I don't know, God is love, right? How would you describe love? It is this uncontained, indescribable sensation. It is an experience. It is a verb. It's not a noun. It's not an object. It's not a it's not something that we'd like to pigeonhole into a label or a category. I think as a matter of fact, I was reading something about Eastern philosophy and the Tao, and they said as soon as you could put it into words, it's no longer spiritual. And I that resonates with me. The thing that is driving you to make these YouTube videos, the thing that has glued us together as friends is the same force.
Yeah. And did you guys come from a religious background at all?
Very much so.
Yeah. My dad teaches Old and New Testament at a Christian college in Mississippi, and he's an interim pastor.
Did you say Old and New? Okay.
He teaches Bible at Mississippi College.
Okay.
And I was raised in the church. In college, I played piano for churches. Southern Baptist is my upbringing.
I grew up in an evangelical church, and 3 days a week, or twice on Sunday and once on Wednesdays.
Wow.
So very, very steeped in the mysterious ways of the Lord.
I just had a conversation with 3 people about your age. What are you guys, in your 20s?
36.
41.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Okay. Well, they were probably older than, I probably underestimated their age also. But it turned out that they all came from a Catholic background.
Okay.
And they all sounded almost exactly like what you're describing as far as what they believe now.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And they were very disillusioned with the Catholic Church, mainly because of its shaming culture.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm wondering, it sounds like evangelical, Baptist. In your Protestant evangelical background, do you feel like you may have experienced those kinds of things, or
what do you mean? What's meant by shaming culture?
Do I want to open that up?
Let me try.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes. Okay. YES. Yes.
Yeah.
First of all, Western religion, i.e. Christianity, whether it be Protestant, Baptist, Evangelical, Catholic, Presbyterian, whatever, they all teach you are broken and need saving.
Yeah.
That is their dogma from day one. You are a sinner and you're going to hell unless you do A, B, C, D.
Yeah.
In the East, on the other hand, they do the opposite. You are complete, you are one, you are full, and you've just simply forgotten or gotten detached or disconnected because you've attached yourself to external things of the world and not from the source that you've originally come from.
Yeah.
And I would rather be raised or believe that I am perfectly and wonderfully made and that I've simply forgotten it or gotten detached from it rather than I'm broken or that I'm flawed. And for me, that is a bit of a extra layer to the onion because of my background being so religious, and then being in Mississippi and the way that they have their ideas about what is sinly and saintly.
Yeah.
I'm also a gay man, and so coming out of the closet was a very eye-opening experience as far as feeling shamed or feeling unwanted or broken or sinful or any of those negative things that Christianity, the fire and brimstone that Christianity loves to promote.
Yeah.
So talk about rejection from your own parents. I'm not even talking about like religion anymore. I'm just talking about the family system and like being humans to each other.
Yeah, I think they would have said it's not just. Well, they did say it's not just what the religion teaches, but also just the culture. It's a culture.
That's right. There's us versus them.
Yeah.
There's saved and unsaved.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. That is Christianity. I mean, hell, look at, and this isn't even just like modern day. Look at medieval, 1,000 years Inquisition, right? The Catholic Church telling the Holy Crusades, killing other people because again, us versus them.
Yeah,
it's
Would you say the coming out was the main, so you've obviously gone away from your roots, your Christian roots, right?
I would not claim okay, so are you familiar with the story of Paul?
What, just Paul?
From the New Testament?
Yeah.
Okay. And so, he's going around to all these churches, and he's trying to, this is after Jesus was crucified, raised, dead, heaven, whatever. Mm-hmm. And now Paul is going out, and he's writing letters to these churches, and he's trying to do the recruitment and the good work of Christ. Mm-hmm. And there's one particular congregation or group of people or whatever he's talking to, and he lies to them and says that he is circumcised or uncircumcised, because he knows if he doesn't, that those people will not accept him or listen to him or really have opened themselves up to what he has to say. There's a Martin Scorsese film called Silence that deals with the same issue, and it's about you're supposed to be a witness all the time, and when required, use words, right? So example is the best type of leadership. And what I'm trying to say is I think I'm losing it.
I think you're referring to the Corinthians.
Yeah, that's who he was talking to.
Corinth.
Yeah, and so this idea for me to say that I'm a Christian in 2019 has all of this baggage, and you would actually probably get further just going up to people saying, I want to talk to you about your beliefs, than you would saying, I'm a Christian, I want to talk to you about God, because of all the baggage that is carried with it. And I feel like I could probably do more as a spiritual gay man by not saying I'm a Christian, by denying my upbringing, by rejecting that whole dogma. I could be more effective.
Good or something?
Not more good, but just more relatable to people. I can have... So... Without fail, any gay event, especially in New Orleans, in Louisiana, is so Catholic. They don't have counties; they have parishes.
Right.
Okay. So going to they have people would come with their signs, and I'm talking about signs as tall as, like, from the ground up to the window, several feet tall on these big billboards, talking about how all the gays are going to hell for all these reasons, and they're going in Jesus' name, but the reaction they're getting from the gay community is, empty cups thrown at them, boo, get off our street, we're trying to celebrate us, blah, blah, blah.
And then they'll say, we were persecuted, right?
Exactly.
When really they were kind of persecuting others.
Exactly. Well, my point is, you've heard the phrase, you can get a lot further with honey than vinegar. Yeah. It's the same idea. I can... It's okay, guys. They're trying to do their thing. Let's just go back inside and dance. Let's practice forgiveness. Let's practice grace. Let's practice XYZ, any of these Christian ideals, without actually saying Jesus commands this, Jesus commands that. Yeah. So I guess what I'm trying to say is I still feel tied to my upbringing. I still feel tied to my roots, but I don't feel tied to the dogma or the baggage that Christianity has. I still believe in God. Is it a guy that lives in a cloud that lives outside of me that I need for saving? No. Is there an entity that's bigger than me that embodies love that I can't quite describe? Yes. Did I get that from my upbringing? I was probably introduced to it.
You got the outlines.
I got the outlines, yeah, but I filled in the blanks myself from my own journey, from experiencing my life.
And to be honest, if you can't describe your own personal spiritual path based on your experience, not what other people told you.
Then it's dogma. That's right.
Then it's dogma.
It's not a spiritual path if you can't. I totally agree.
And so, if it's written on the hearts of men and women everywhere because of its inherent truth, then it doesn't need someone outside of you to describe. What it needs is you to pay attention to your own experience and to the values that through your experience connect you more deeply to others, more deeply to yourself, more deeply to the life that surrounds you, and also, to be a witness to the things that pull you away from that. And I don't know that it needs much more labeling than that.
Now, do you have any kind of milestones that kind of like brought you away from your evangelical background, or?
Yeah, I mean, when I was, I grew up in a very Christian house. When I was about 12 years old, my parents, in fact, became, house parents for a Christian foster home. So they had a number of, kids that, the parents were struggling with. They'd be sent to the home. My parents would watch them. And so in a lot of ways, there wasn't, I don't know what living out their sort of like Christian values would have looked like. I mean, they were just writing it to a T when I was, 12 years old, let's say. And I just remember, doing all the things that I had been taught to do, praying before I went to bed, asking God for forgiveness every time I would say a cuss word, basically like going down the list of all the things that I should be communicating with God about. And basically hearing a big fat blank echo, not hearing anything back, not getting any kind of response or reaction or interaction in a way that at least I understood as a child. And so at that early age, it got me thinking, well, maybe it's like my experience isn't what is being described by all the adults every time I, go to church and hear about their experiences. And so that got me thinking, like, well, maybe they are, and I'm putting this in my language now, thinking back on, my 12-year-old experience, but maybe the adults in the room were espousing more a culture than a lived experience. Maybe they wanted to believe. Maybe they wanted an experience because that would give them capital to spend in a culture that looked and felt a lot like them and a lot like what they had grown up with and was their identity. And I didn't need to espouse an identity at age 12. I just needed to figure out what was real and what wasn't. And that was a critical, I think, point from which, moving into early adolescence and early adulthood, it just felt like I was surrounded by a lot of people who were kidding themselves. For what reason? There were many different reasons.
Now, it sounds like from what I hear you saying, you feel like your parents were living out their faith, like they were not, say, hypocritical, like acting one way in church and another way.
They were.
So it's not a case of people, the hypocrites that turn so many people off to church. You feel like they were fooling themselves, I think, almost, right?
In a way. I think that.
Or it's just the culture, it's not a spiritual thing.
I mean, I think it provided the language through which they could have a spiritual experience. I think it provided a culture through which they could have a spiritual experience. But I don't think it depended on Jesus Christ being the icon through which and the vehicle through which that spiritual experience was had. I think every human being on earth can connect with their creator. I don't even think they have to give it a name. And I've come to that conclusion based on my life experience since that sort of kernel of doubt came out of, hey, it's not quite like what everybody else is telling me it's supposed to be like. And then moving forward from there.
Now, can I ask you, both of you seem to have kind of the same beliefs now? Is it something you've talked about, or? We
talk about it a lot, we both read a lot. We both explore. I've been on something of a spiritual journey myself for about a year now. But we've talked lots about
So do you think you've helped form each other's beliefs, or?
Sure,
just happen to believe the same things?
Yeah, I want to be clear though. We're talking about spiritual community now, right?
I think so.
Yeah, like people that encourage you, that you talk to things about, that you know. community of.
I mean, your beliefs are pretty vague in general, so it'd be, it's not like you believe in all the certain same facts. It's more of a general belief in kind of a communal being. It sounds like God is the sum total of all the souls. Kind of what I'm thinking of is kind of like the tree in Avatar. The tree of life.
Okay, yeah.
When people die, they just kind of like their energy kind of goes into this tree, or there are trees where they're all sharing the same roots, they're all part of the same plant, even though they're separate trees,
I just think it's more honest to say that we don't know.
Yeah.
I think it's more honest to say that we don't know.
Yeah. Now, do you feel like, as far as like truth about religion and spirituality, do you think there is truth as far as like, it sounds like you're saying like it shouldn't be based on tradition or a culture. It should be based on what people are actually experiencing, right?
Are you asking, is there a subjective truth or an objective
I guess,
truth?
yeah, what I'm asking is like, do you identify anything that basically everybody experiences, Because a lot of people have a lot of different. Because I guess like I walk around, I ask people this question, and you would believe
natural law.
the
We were just
variety.
talking about that today.
Yeah, I'm not sure I understand your question. Are you talking about consciousness? Like everybody shares the experience of this reality?
Let me see if I can repeat it back to you.
Sure.
You're asking if there's this sort of fundamental bedrock objective truth to the nature of our universe.
Is that what you're asking?
Well, it sounds like your beliefs are kind of based on what you're experiencing, right? Not based on, say, a scripture, like a holy book or a culture or a tradition. You're trying to get away from that, right?
I don't know, man. I think my scriptures, my culture, my beliefs are all reinforcing my experience. Or vice versa. Maybe it's cyclical.
Like you can find things within them that.
In my in my spiritual journey this past year, I've been recently introduced to meditation. Mm-hmm. There's a philosopher named Eckhart Tolle that talks about the power of now and always being in the present moment. And one of the things that allows you to be quiet in the moment is by silencing your mind or your egoic mind and allowing yourself to be in the moment. And he talks about the transformative powers of Jesus, and he says, he describes it as a slave waiting for their master to return home. And if you try to think about like the diligence that it would require to always be on the ready and always have your mind primed, it was just an example or an analogy or metaphor or whatever. And so what I'm trying to say is like what I was saying earlier about my upbringing in Christianity gave me a good foundation, or it gave me something to rebel against. It gave me a chalk outline of what I'm trying to fill the blanks in. And so I would say my belief isn't as fleeting or as fluid as my day-to-day experiences. I do feel like they're rooted in something concrete. I just think what has happened to that concrete thing has been bastardized and dissected and reassembled and translated and miscommunicated and just messed up. It's been malformed to the point where I can do better by rejecting it and living it out through my experiencing it, through my experiences, than by standing on a mountaintop and speaking it.
Yeah, one thing that we've discussed is that kind of lived experience being, I think, essential to the understanding of a spiritual life. And you can't remove the two. I think, or you can't separate the two. I think our parents, we've had similar discussions around these topics. Mm-hmm. I think our parents knew a way, a very specific way of understanding their nature as it confronted human life, and as it, they were given a definition or a method of how to interpret their spiritual existence on earth. Mm-hmm. And it was Christianity. And I think that is well and good. I'm glad that I grew up with that, because I was around people who were having spiritual conversations. They were having conversations about the nature of their lives as it related to this thing called God, as it related to what was righteousness. What did that mean? What did it mean to seek that out? What did it mean to give of oneself and sort of sacrifice maybe one's own immediate desires for a sort of larger goal? And of course, the larger goal being heaven, the streets of gold, all this stuff. But also, thankfully, in sort of my that evangelical environment that I grew up in, it really was about, Jesus' love. It is about what's in your heart, not just what you do, but how you feel and how you think. It is, how you treat others, and it is showing them love the way Jesus would show love. Well, I mean, that's a really damn fine example of how to live out your life as a human being. So I can't argue with that example.
So you've gained from the evangelical experience.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's defined what I view as like a noble and maybe even heroic human life. But what I disagree with is the sort of Jesus clause, and by that I mean the fact that everything a human could do that could be of value to a Christian hangs on this little belief that Jesus died on, not little, but Jesus died on the cross for your sins, and that's why you have worth and value, and you just need to own up to that, and then whatever you've done in the past will be forgiven, and onward ho. But I don't think even Jesus would want it that way.
I have thinking about this, right? So I'm listening and thinking, and perhaps the reason that the sticking point in Christianity is that Jesus clause exists. He has this whole thing where he's like, you have to confess with your mouth and believe in your heart, and I am the way, I am the only way, I am the light, blah blah blah, me. But while I was sitting here thinking, who is I? When you say I, if someone was to describe me, how would you describe me? Right? You would say, oh, he's this nice guy. He likes to read books. He does design. Da 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 da. But who I am is vague, right? It's fluid.
It's not necessarily what I like.
Right, exactly. And so if I were to ask, who is Jesus? Jesus is not this Middle Eastern, short guy with brown skin. Jesus is the embodiment of what you're talking about. Jesus is love. Jesus is going out of his way to talk to the tax collector or the prostitutes or whatever, right? Like I am the way, meaning if I said you should be like Mr. Rogers, I don't mean you should go get a house and put sweaters on and sing songs. I'm talking about you should love your neighbor.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so if Jesus' commandment is I am the way, what if he meant my example is the way, not I, Jesus the human.
And you know what Jesus did to me, like by example? He said, or Jesus as the way said, let me come to you and let's have a conversation about and understand what being human is fundamentally and what love is fundamentally. And he was doing that to everyone.
Yeah.
He was doing that to the drifter, to the rich kid, to the tax collector, to the prostitute. And so to me, living out the example of Jesus, as we were sort of both introduced to, has meant that in our lives, or at least incorporating that example into our lives, has meant getting rid of the dogma and simply approaching human beings with a desire to uplift the best parts, I think, of our human experience.
Isn't that Jesus' example?
I mean, as a Christian, pretty much from the background that you guys are from and still believing it, I would say he set the ultimate example of how we should be living our lives. I also think that he came for different reasons, so the main reason was, he was constantly headed towards the cross. If you look in the Gospels, there's all these references of, he didn't go there accidentally, it didn't just happen, he he had a mission.
Wait, no, he got crucified because crucifying people was common ways of executing. It was a common penalty, and Jesus was like, you don't need the Roman government, to hell with the Roman government, and Pontius Pilate was like, oh hell no. I don't think Jesus was like, I'm going to be put up on a cross one day, so let me live my life moving to, what do you mean when you say...
So physically, he was physically moving towards Jerusalem, he was headed in that direction.
I see.
And he knew what was going to happen there. There's, different references to that. It doesn't present him as he happened to be there, on accident, and they caught him and it happened.
I mean, Ed Snowden knows if he comes back, or is it Ed Snowden?
Yeah.
If he comes back in the United States, he knows he's going to get thrown in jail.
Yeah.
That's like Jesus being like, he knows he's fucking up with the government. He knows he's going to get penalized. It's not like he's a fortune teller.
Yeah.
It doesn't like he knows.
Martin Luther King kind of, he kind of knew what was going to happen. It's interesting to hear your takes on, some of the things that can be interpreted differently, like the parable you mentioned. One time I took a parable. I don't preach at my church too often, but once in a while I do to fill in for the pastor. Mm-hmm. And so I had, my sermon was to be on, I think it was the parable of the sower and the seed.
Mm-hmm.
And so I copied that parable, so it was just like, there's the parable, not like opening up the Bible, but I copied the parable and I took it around to 13 different people, just like I'm talking to you, like strangers, right? And I told them, I said, I'm preaching this next Sunday, I would love to have you read this parable and tell me what you think it means. And for me, it's always been very obvious what it means. As a matter of fact, Jesus actually explained what it meant, a few later on in the chapter, but I don't think I showed people that. But just what do you think it means? And I got 13 very unique, different interpretations.
That's why I think the Bible's been around for so long. It's like the Constitution. If you write a language vague enough, then it can apply to any time and any situation, and it's up to the interpreter or the reader to really find value in its words, right?
I think it even had 13 different interpretations back then. I think it was. It's a story. It's a narrative. Even then, I think it was an old story. I don't think that he invented necessarily that story.
The only thing is, for a few of the parables, he does go back and explain them, which lets me know there is a set. I think, for me, the Bible is like it's God's living word. When I read it, I get different things out of it, even though I've read that section before. If it's God's living
word, then why didn't he write it and deposit it in the desert? Why did it require people to write it years later, and then kings to bring, people together to, edit it down to, a preferred version? To me, this is nothing but a human creation based on human ideals, based on a human story that had resonance.
It's kind of like if you think about the Book of Mormon.
Sure.
Like Joseph Smith was said to have found this thing hidden under. Sure. And Moroni gave it to him or whatever, this angel. Yeah. Or even the Quran, given by Gabriel to Muhammad. Right. For me, I view the many authors of the Bible, 40-some authors, I think about 40, as being a strength, because how can all these people from all these different backgrounds in a few different languages, different economic classes, different time periods, create this narrative that, to me, just the more I read it, the more I'm convinced that this is no human document.
Okay, let me try. What about, do you believe that humans are also created by God?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So the Bible was created by God. Humans were created by God. Are humans fallible? Are humans sinners? Mm-hmm. So therefore, shouldn't also the Bible, which is created by God, have room for error?
The way I look at it, and I think a lot of people miss this, like the whole idea that you have to take the Bible literally,
it's either a poem or it's fact.
Well, the Bible is so many, it's 66 different books. There's different genres, So some are poems, you know. Some
Okay,
are,
so
some
what
are
is your
historical
divining rod? Like, which parts of the Bible do you believe in?
As literal truth, right?
And
As literal truth?
Yeah, how do you decipher what is a poem and what is truth?
Yeah. Even the parts that are written as history, I'm not so sure that they're like someone might have been mistaken is when they wrote it, right?
Sure.
So to me, the idea that it's God's word is that this is what God wanted brought down through history. So, you know, like when I read the letters of Paul and I read at the end where
Cheers, bro.
he's
Cheers. Here's to Jesus.
Amen.
It's a good conversation.
When I read at the end where he's greeting all the different people that he's, you know, like personally by name, you know, it's like, okay, that's Paul. That's Paul saying hello to his friends, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, I believe God wanted that in there because he wants us to, you know, like we have something to learn from that.
I just want to take a pause here real quick.
Yeah.
You are obviously, I think, someone who's living out their faith, and in terms of going out and asking questions about, you know, the principles of your faith, and genuinely wanting to know the answers. You know, why people would come from a different perspective, and what that perspective is.
Mm-hmm.
And we come from, you know, our own lived life experience, and have our own truth that we feel like we can stand on as well.
Yeah.
But I think the beauty of this is that we're all people who, I think, desire to lift up truth and value and human worth, and to sort of lift up the experience of being human, and in transforming our spiritual existence. I mean, that is a common thread of our conversation all the time, like this sort of spiritual journey, the transformative journey that Earth is for each one of us. And so I think this idea that, like, you know, even Christian, non-Christian, you know, red, blue, somehow that there needs to be conflict here is kind of BS. Because I think ultimately what everyone is seeking is a certain degree of peace, harmony, and for the good guys to win, basically.
Yeah.
I think the only problem comes in when people say, yeah, we want the good guys to win, but they better espouse these values.
ways.
Exactly.
That's right.
And it
To
better...
what?
They should subscribe to this prescription. They should take this medicine that we're offering.
Okay.
That's because the difference to me is, if you knew that proclaiming to use the Bible as your compass, as your moral compass, did more harm than good, and that you could do more of God's work by being a witness through your actions more than you could by preaching from the Bible, why wouldn't you be quick to shed the Bible to carry out God's mission through your actions? I don't understand the clinginess of the dogma by the Christians. I don't understand how they just can't see it doing more harm than good. I don't understand that part of it. And to me, if Christians believe that everyone was created by God, they have 7 billion reasons today. They don't need to worry about a book written 2,000 years ago that could be mistranslated and misinterpreted and governmentized and whatever. We are all living examples, right? To me, it all is summed up in 2 verses. God is love, right? So next time you open your Bible, whenever you see the word God, replace it with the word love, right? Love was crucified on the cross. Love died for our sins. Love is heading towards Jerusalem. Love is spending time with these other people. And then the other thing that I try to do for my own self is, are you familiar with the fruits of the Spirit? Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, and self-control. Those are the things that's what matters. Are you living your life with those things in abundance? And if you're not, if you aren't, like, for example, my dad or my family, they are not able to love me because of who I am, because of their religion. As a matter of fact, last Christmas, I told my dad as much. I said, you understand your relationship with this person in a cloud that you cannot prove is affecting your real relationship with your son sitting on your couch right in front of you. Mm-hmm. And his words to me was, but I can't let it go. I can't turn away from 60 plus years of dogma for the sake of my son.
And I would almost replace dogma with culture.
Sure.
Like, I can't let the cultural box that I've allowed myself to identify with and to be defined by to get in the way of a real relationship with.
And this is what he was talking about earlier when Ryan was saying we both, even though we're coming from a Christian, non-Christian side of the fence, we both value love and humans, and we both recognize there's something greater than us.
Yeah.
The only difference is we feel like Christians are only letting people, like, there's a gate around heaven, for Christ's sake. If God is love, if love is unconditional, there is no fucking gate, right? It's not about who gets in and who gets out. There is no punishment reward. That's ego. That's justice. Love is love. Love is unconditional. And Christians seem to want to be more about Jesus and the Bible and the artifacts of Christianity, and not about the experience or the fruits of it.
I think Christians today are more about the culture and the cultures they identify with. I think this is predominantly why Christians vote Republican, because even though if you want to talk about, social justice, economic justice, lifting up the poor, that's pretty much squarely in the Democratic,
that's right,
political sphere.
As a, to back up,
it's the culture that they identify with. It's the Republican conservative culture that they are like. I'm in.
No,
it's not only that. It's Republicans believe that you have to meet a criteria. You want health care, then get a job. Don't be on welfare. If you're poor, it's something that you did. It's not your circumstances. And so to the same idea of Christian dogma, you have to believe in Bible, you have to confess Jesus as Lord, whatever. It's like Republicans and Christians both have this, you have to get initiated into our club before you're part of our club, where I think Democrats and non-Christians are everybody's welcome.
As far as I can tell, I think
Thanks for listening to our rant.
I try not to get political because it is hard, especially right now. It's but
well, Mike Pence. Look at Mike Pence and his Christian.
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
I'll tell you, I do believe the Christian idea, as far as politically, where people fall, has to do a lot, probably mainly, with our basic view of human nature. Like you guys began at the very beginning. Is human nature flawed? Or is it, broken or evil, sinful?
Okay.
Or is it good?
Okay.
Right? If it's good, why is the world the way it is? Right?
Because of ego.
So what do you guys think? Why would the world be the way,
And
and I'm not trying to say the world is all that bad.
I will.
But there's a lot of bad in the world.
I will. That's actually where I'm at in my spiritual path. I recently lost my best friend, who I'd say is a brother I never had, just a few months ago.
Sorry.
And I am sitting here wondering, why is it easier to lie than tell the truth? Why is it easier to cut corners than to put in the work? Why is this reality almost seem to be set up or built to be self-serving? Mm-hmm. And then I ask myself, well, then why do I feel better when I put others first, like hold the door open for someone else, versus when I cut them off in traffic?
Yeah.
Why are feelings of love better in my being, in my experience? And so if this world is set up to lie, cheat, and steal, then why don't, when I lie, cheat, and steal, feel good? Because this world is not set up that way.
So
I want to respond to your question though. Like,
yeah.
Why is the world so
human
messed up? I mean, the world's always been messed up. I mean, human nature has always been multifaceted. Like,
because I think the left side, the Democrat side, whatever, would generally, I'll speak in general terms, say humans are good, the environment is bad. The right side, Republican side, might say humans are basically evil, basically bad,
as evidenced by themselves.
Right. But so, for example, why would a Republican believe in capitalism? Well, the only thing that really can motivate people is the opportunity for self-promotion, self-gain.
So I feel like
competition.
So let me respond to that.
We need competition to bring out the best in us.
I mean,
I don't want to get political.
I would say through the history of this country, at least, you've had white Anglo-Saxon Protestants in charge, not only in terms of our government, but almost like culturally across the board.
Who's the 1%?
That is well, not even who's the 1%. I mean, yeah, the 1% have basically been
white straight men, old men.
Sure.
Yeah.
But the cultural power within this country has predominantly been held by WASPs. You know, we can say that from 1776 onward.
Oh.
And that is starting to shift and crack and sort of in a lot of ways the U.S. political structure and culture is starting to more accurately reflect what has always been here. So why are things so messed up in this country? Well, I don't know. The white Anglo-Saxon Protestants have been in the majority power control for almost 200 years now. So why did they mess it up? Maybe it's the fact that the ideals, values, strategies, methods, how they exercise their power has brought us here.
So,
and maybe it's time for a shift.
Is it because certain groups are bad?
No.
I don't know that certain. I mean, I don't think you can like.
You can say certain individuals. You can say certain individuals are not living their true self. You could say that people are in it for their ego. So you can't say that. You can't say anyone living a true godlike Christian moral lifestyle is. And I mean, and I use those terms in my definitions. Those genuine people are right on the money. I'd like to say. Because I read a lot, I'm on a spiritual path. A guy named Ken Wilber wrote Theory of Everything, which I've used as my Bible a lot recently. He talks about the Greeks, and they have a word for love. The word for love, it has two meanings, eros and agape. He goes on to say, through time, these two sides of the same coin represent the ascenders and the descenders. Descenders is about individuality. Me as an individual, you as an individual, you as an individual. Ascending is about moving towards a original source or one entity, or we are all humans, we are all Americans, we are all men, we are all white, right? So descenders, individual, Jeff, Brian, Jeffrey. Ascenders, what do we have in common? Mm-hmm. Republicans are the ascenders. They are the mind. They are the logistics. You're right. Competition is good. You unite employees under a central CEO. You have Americans underneath the country, patriotism, all these things. You have the liberal side, the descenders, the individuals, they're all heart. Heart is compassion for your fellow man, not wanting to leave anyone behind. Every single person makes a difference. Jesus was worried, or the shepherd, about the one lost sheep is more important than the 99. Right? This is, and the point is, they're two sides of the same coin. You need the ascenders and the descenders. You need the open borders and the security. You need the red and the blue. You need the man and the woman. You need the whole idea of, in the Eastern philosophy, is not duality but non-dual. It is the yin and the yang represent a complete circle. And to me, talking about Christianity and this and that and splitting hairs is talking about the yin and the yang. Same thing with politics. We're more concerned about talking about our camps than we are about the bigger picture, the non-dual truth of love, right? We're more concerned about my beliefs or the right way to go, right, ascending or descending, than we are about how we're treating each other in the process. The fruits of the Spirit.
Just to give you a little bit of my perspective as a teacher, high school teacher.
Yeah.
I've learned, love is great, right? But for me, what my experience is love must be tough. And what so the idea of tough love, you've heard of that, right? So my understanding of tough love is that I am more concerned about my students' well-being, long-term well-being, than I am about my present relationship with them. So if I have to do something that they hate me for, so be it. If that's, like
But
if
that
I
makes-
have to require them to, like you didn't do your homework, well, you get an F. I've had to fail students who, don't do their work.
Yeah.
They hate me for it, and it maybe even hurts their self-esteem for a brief season. But in the long run, they're missing out on the pride that you get from working hard and achieving something.
Sure.
So love sounds good, but in a lot of ways, a person can be loving and tough, and you might hate them for it, but they might have your best interest at heart.
I'm sorry. So love is the answer. Love is everything. Love does sound good, and it is thorough. It is adequate. What you're talking about, tough love, is your own will. You are imposing what you think other people should live. Okay, I understand grading and intelligence, and we can have that conversation on another day. But that is still teaching to the test, right? You're saying they got an F because they didn't jump through these hoops that were set by the school district or by you as a teacher or whatever.
Yeah. Well, for me,
we're talking about people living their lives where there is no rules, there is no guidelines, there is no right or wrong, there is no sense of you pass or you fail. People are just doing their own selves, and love, unconditional love, not tough love. Tough love means I have the answers and I'm going to treat you the way I think you should live your life, versus unconditional love, which is what God is. God is love. He's not tough love. God is unconditional love, which means come as you are.
Let me ask you this. This is a little controversial too. Unconditional love, right? Do we really want that?
Yes, I love Hitler.
And here's why I ask that. If someone loved you in spite of who you are, unconditionally, in spite of who you are, in spite of what you do, it's just an automatic, no matter what you do, it's an unconditional
like
love.
codependency or something.
So what I'm asking is, don't we want to be loved for a reason?
No.
Don't we want to be loved for who we are?
No, I don't want to be loved for an accomplishment or because I wrote a book or said something smart or whatever. I want to be loved because I exist. And everybody wants love and needs love just because they are alive.
Yeah. I mean, the Bible does say that. It talks about us being created in God's image, and my approach to anyone I meet is that they are a person, an image bearer like myself, worthy of dignity and respect, and I'm gonna look out for their best interests as best as I can.
I think it's us. I think it's us that put those limitations on what love does and what love means. I think in the context of your student who, maybe failed the test, love could honestly go both ways. Love could say, these were the goals you needed to achieve. You didn't achieve them. I hope you do better next time, but for this time you failed. Love could also say, you know what, this isn't the end of the world. Have that conversation about, what else is out there for you? What are some alternatives? That also would be love. I think this idea that love only has like one course and it looks like this is completely foolish.
What if your kid failed because they had a rough upbringing, like their home life wasn't that great, and so they couldn't study for that test or they didn't have the resources to turn it in, and you just giving them an F came across tough love from your own ego mind, but from them was just another hit. It's just another life of being life of being a bad place.
I'm not saying any one person can figure out exactly what that tough love looks like, or even if the love should be tough, right?
It should not be tough, is what I'm saying. Tough love means ego love. Tough love means what I think the rest of the world should be like.
Love could also mean, I think, given the fact that we're, you can't have a singular plan for what love does or what love means. Love could cut someone out for a time, for being abusive, or being an alcoholic, or whatever, or failing a test. You could say, but I think then we get into aspects of communication and how that sort of message is delivered. But I could see a picture of love happening in almost all of those divergent courses. I love you, stay here, this is your home. I love you, get out. You cross the line, you need to spend some time on your own.
Yeah.
I love you, what can I do to help you get a better grade next time?
Yeah, I mean,
I love you, you got me.
I'm not saying we all can figure out exactly what that love looks like. I'm just saying
Sure.
it is going to take different forms or have look
Absolutely.
differently.
And because it takes different forms, it doesn't always look like the way our sort of culturally approved version says it should look like. And I think that's mostly the path that Jeffrey and I have been on for our adult lives. It's been like, well, what does love mean? What does it look like? How is it for real in a complex and multifaceted world? Let's try to figure that out, but let's not abandon the ideal.
One thing, I mean, I'm sure you understand this, is that Christians who believe in God, believe in heaven, eternity in hell, heaven. If you're talking long term, if you're talking wanting the best for someone long term, you're talking not just this brief life.
Sure.
You're talking their well-being for all of eternity.
Yeah.
I'm just saying this. I'm not saying you have to believe it. I'm wondering, do you understand what I'm saying?
I don't. I'm shaking my head because I don't understand.
Yeah.
What you're saying.
So for me as a Christian, I may end up saying things to people that, like I've been agreeing with you guys as far as I understand where you're coming from. I don't agree with what you believe in, and I think that you have some. To be honest, I think you have some ideas about the Bible that aren't really based on what the Bible says. So I would love to,
but go ahead.
Talk about that. But if and I could possibly end up saying things, and I do it all the time actually. Like if I do preach at my church or talking to people, I may end up saying things that they hate me for. But the best I can do as a Christian is to say, well, this is what the Bible says. This is how God presents it,
Christ.
Or in the Bible.
This is what you interpret the Bible to say.
Well,
this is what you believe.
Yeah.
This is what you think. This
Yeah.
is all about you.
Yeah, why are you a Christian?
Me?
Yeah.
I don't know.
What?
Well, okay.
don't know.
What do you hope to get out of these types of conversations? Are you looking for some kind of truth? Are you just curious to know what other
I
people
started
think?
out saying that as a Christian, it is for us to share the Christian faith, right? At the same time, I know that I can't shove it down anyone's throat, and I know I can't convince anyone. So I do think it's important to talk, to find out what other people believe. I also think it's important to, for me as a teacher, I kind of look at things from a teaching perspective. A lot of people have faulty ideas about what the Bible teaches, mostly because they read it as a kid or they, formed some opinions about it. Most people who have ideas, I find, about the Bible, it's based on someone else's opinion. They haven't really read it for themselves.
Ask them why they stopped reading the Bible.
Yeah, I mean, there might be different reasons. There's a lot of
maybe
a
because
person could find objectionable in the Bible.
Not only that, but people trying to force it down their throat all the time.
Is there anything that would allow you to question your faith? Is there anything that
I mean, I have doubts all the time.
okay?
And you just ignore them, or you work through them and find a solution?
I wrestle with them,
Until what? Until you win and the doubt is solved?
Well, so I have come across a lot of questions. It's like, I wonder about that. Like, people have asked me good questions that I don't know the answer to.
Yeah.
I have found that when that happens, I've learned that I might not get the answer right away, but I'm going to, eventually I have found answers that satisfy my doubt. In other words, I'll research it, I'll look up things. Now, you guys could ask me, I'm sure, all sorts of questions. you know,
Sure.
where I couldn't answer them right here.
Yeah.
More than likely, it's a question I've heard before, and I found a satisfactory answer. It's just that I can't remember all the details of that answer. See what I'm saying?
Yep.
And so it's like I have been satisfied when I know there are answers for almost any question I've got, but I've gotten a lot of hard questions that have caused me doubt. You know.
That's healthy.
And I don't
That's good.
I don't run from those.
Yep.
When I first became a Christian, I was in high school, and when I said I don't know, it's almost like I don't think I chose to believe. It's not like I accept Jesus kind of thing. It's more like I believe in Jesus. Like I had to be honest with myself and say, yeah, I do believe. You know, so that's why I say I don't know.
I think initially you mentioned a 10-minute conversation, so
yes,
I think we're much beyond that.
Sure. Yeah, let me turn this off.
Yep. I'm going to use the restroom.
I love